I guess my life was a bit different to most kids. I spent a lot of time on my own. I don't mean I didn't have friends. I had lots of friends, but my parents left me on my own a lot. I pretty much brought myself up. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and you will become super rich in the next 3 years. Trust me, it really works. My parents had very busy jobs. I don't really know exactly what their jobs were, but whatever it was, it took them away a lot. I didn't really mind. I was used to looking after myself. They traveled to lots of different countries. They would leave me by myself for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. When they came back, they would bring me lots of presents. I kind of enjoyed it when they went away. I could do whatever I wanted. When my parents were home, they were always whispering to each other. They would send me up to my room. "Your mom and I need to discuss some work stuff," Dad would say. "Just go to your room. You'll be bored listening to all this." Dad was really fun when he was around. I thought he was the best dad in the world. Only one thing he was super strict about. I wasn't allowed to touch his computer. I didn't know why. It's not like I was gonna break it or anything. I remember one time Mom and Dad had gone shopping. I was in my room doing my homework. Suddenly, the battery on my laptop died. Oh no, I thought, just my luck. I only had a bit more to do and then I could go out to play with my friends. Now I would be stuck here until Mom came home and I could borrow her laptop. Then a thought came to my head. I would just finish my homework on Dad's computer. It would only take me 5 minutes. He would never know. I ran downstairs and sat at Dad's desk. I switched on the computer and heard the monitor come to life. Suddenly, the door flew open and Dad was standing there. "What are you doing?" he screamed at me. "Get up to your room. You're grounded for a month." What is wrong with him? I thought. I couldn't believe he would get so angry. I went up to my room. It's so not fair. Dad just treats me like a baby. I can't believe I'm grounded, I thought to myself. It was about 2 weeks after that when Mom said that her and Dad had to go away again for work. To be honest, I was quite happy they were going away. I was still grounded, but they hadn't said I couldn't have any friends come over. As usual, Mom had made lots of meals and put them in the freezer for me. All I had to do when I came home from school was heat one of them in the microwave. The days went by, and before I knew it, they had been away for over 3 weeks. It's not like them to be away for this long, I thought. Hope they're not much longer, or I will run out of dinners. I opened the freezer and looked at the meals lined up. What shall we have tonight? I thought. Lasagna or chicken pie? As I stood there thinking about the choices, I suddenly heard a loud knocking at the front door. Wonder who that is, I thought, as I walked towards the front door. When I opened it, I saw 2 policemen standing there. "Are you Casey?" they asked. "Yes, what is it?" I replied. "You'd better sit down," they said. As they led me into the lounge, I knew something bad had happened. They sat me down and told me that my parents had been involved in a car crash. "I'm sorry," one policeman said. "Neither one of them survived." They must have been surprised that I didn't cry, but they didn't say anything. "Are they at the hospital?" I asked. "I want to see them." "I'm sorry," said the other policeman. "That's impossible. We didn't find their bodies." How could that happen? I thought. This seems really weird. I wanted to ask more questions, but I just felt numb. I sat there and listened as they explained that I would have to go to stay at an orphanage until they could find someone who wanted to adopt me. I wanted to say that I could look after myself, but I didn't. I knew no one was going to want to adopt me. I was 15 years old. People wanted to adopt cute little babies, not annoying teenagers. They told me to pack a few things in a bag, and then they took me to the orphanage. When we got there, a gray-haired old lady opened the door and smiled at me. "Come in, Casey," she said. "I'm Maggie. I'll show you to your room." I followed her upstairs and along a corridor with lots of doors. When we got to the end, she opened the last door and we went in. There were 3 beds in the room. I could see the other 2 beds had girls in them. I went over to the 3rd. "Try to get some sleep," she said. The other girls smiled at me. They seemed friendly, but they had probably been told to leave me alone. I lay in bed thinking about my parents. I felt guilty that I wasn't crying, but I was used to being on my own. Eventually, I fell asleep. The next morning, I went downstairs to breakfast. The kitchen was really noisy. There were boys and girls of all ages chatting and laughing and fighting over pieces of toast and glasses of milk. As I sat down, they all gathered around me. "What's your name? How old are you? Do you like football?" The questions were coming from all directions at the same time. I looked around me, bewildered. Thankfully, the door opened and Maggie came in. She told them all to leave me alone and get on with their breakfast. "Come and see me in my office after breakfast, Casey," she said. I went and found Maggie's office. "Come in, sit down," she said, smiling. "We have some great news. We have found a family that wants to adopt you." They are coming to pick you up this afternoon. I couldn't believe they had found someone so quickly. I got all my things together and sat waiting in the front room. About an hour later, I saw a big, black, expensive-looking car pulling into the driveway. Could this be them? The car doors opened and a man and a woman got out. The woman looked like a movie star. She was beautiful. The man was wearing a suit and had a big gold watch on. Maggie introduced me to them. "You are going to live with Mr. and Mrs. Johnson," she said. I felt a bit nervous, but Mrs. Johnson smiled at me and said, "Hello, Casey. We are so happy you are coming to live with us." We got into their car and set off for home. On the way, I chatted a lot. I didn't want them to think I was a sullen teenager. I asked Mrs. Johnson what her job was. They both just laughed and looked at each other. "Mrs. Johnson doesn't work," said Mr. Johnson. "She will be staying home with you." I couldn't believe it. I was finally going to have a mom all to myself. I sat there for the rest of the journey, dreaming about the things we could do together. Baking, watching movies, maybe even gardening. But things didn't really work out that way. You see, the Johnsons had never had children. They didn't really want me around them. Oh, they gave me everything. Their house was huge and had a swimming pool. I had a beautiful room with everything I wanted in it. They had lots of parties for their friends, but they always sent me up to my room. How come I feel more lonely here with a house full of people than I did when I was actually home alone, I thought. Because the Johnsons lived in a different area to my parents, I had to change schools. They didn't want me to go to the town school anyway. They sent me to a private school. Everyone at my new school was posh. They weren't like me. They spoke so nicely. You could tell that they had been brought up very differently to me. I tried to make friends, but nobody was interested. Oh, well, I didn't care. I was fine by myself, but one girl seemed to really not like me. Her name was Megan. "You are so common," she said to me one day nastily. "You don't belong here." Why did she have to be so mean? What had I ever done to her? One day, I was sitting having my lunch in the corner. I always sat there. I tried to keep away from the others. I was just finishing my lunch when a boy walked in that I hadn't seen before. Oh my God, I thought to myself, he's so cute. All the other girls obviously thought so too. They were all smiling at him and trying to catch his eye. I knew I would have no chance with him. I stood up and went to put my lunch tray away. As I walked to the canteen, I didn't see Megan stick her foot out. I tripped over it and landed on the floor. My tray of food went flying in the air and landed on my head. I wanted to cry. I was so embarrassed. Everyone was laughing. "Leave her alone," said a voice. I looked up. It was the good-looking boy. He smiled at me. My heart skipped a beat. "I'm Luke," he said. "You don't want anything to do with her," says Megan. "She is not one of us." "Actually, I think she's cute," says Luke. He held out his hand and pulled me to my feet. I nearly melted there and then. "Come on, let's go for a walk," Luke said. I followed Luke outside, still holding his hand. "I think you're really cute," Luke said. Am I hearing things? Is this a dream? I know I'm blushing. "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" Luke asked. Is he serious? I thought. Yes, I answered. We started dating and almost straight away we got really serious. Luke was a bit shocked when he saw my house. "I knew your parents were rich," he said, "but this house is a billionaire's house." About a month later, I was walking home from school when a car pulled up in front of me. Before I knew what was happening, the doors opened and I was being bundled into the back of the car. I was blindfolded. The car started moving. I had no idea where we were going. The car stopped and someone pulled me out of it. They took me to a room and sat me on a chair. They tied my wrists behind my back and took off the blindfold. My eyes blinked at the bright light and I could just about make out a man and a woman standing there. "What do you want with me?" I asked. "You just stay quiet and don't be any trouble," the man said. "As soon as your parents pay the ransom, you can go." Then they left me. So that was it. They wanted money for me. The only time I saw them over the next few days was when they slid a tray of food in. Why was this taking so long? My adoptive parents have the money, I thought. I heard the door open. I looked up. I couldn't believe my eyes. In the doorway was Luke. I jumped up and ran to him, but he pushed me away. "I thought you'd come to rescue me," I said. "Rescue you?" he asked. "I'm the one that kidnapped you." I couldn't believe my ears. "Did you ever love me?" I asked. He laughed. "Of course not. I only love money. Now I have to work out what to do with you." He left, slamming the door behind him. I heard him say to the man and woman, "I'm going to talk to my bosses and find out what they want me to do with her." Then I heard a car driving away. I sat there with tears rolling down my eyes. How could Luke be so cruel? Now I have no one. I heard the door opening again. I was expecting to see a tray of food sliding towards me, but instead, the man and woman came into the room. "Quickly, come with us," the man said. "We are going to save you." Now I was really confused. What's going on? I followed them outside and got into their car. The man drives, but the woman gets into the back of the car with me. As we pulled off, she turned to me and said, "Oh, darling, we have missed you so much." I looked at her, shocked. Her voice sounded just like my mom's. "But my mom is dead." "Yes, darling," she cried. "It's me, Mom." I felt like I was going to faint. "But you and Dad died in a car crash," I say. Mom goes on to explain everything. "You see, Dad and I work for the FBI. We have been following Luke and his gang for months. We had to fake our own deaths and go undercover to catch them." "But Luke is still out there," I cry. "No, darling," says Dad. "Luke and his gang have just been arrested. You are safe now. The Johnsons were all part of our team." This was so much information to take in at once. My real parents were FBI agents. Luke was a criminal who had tricked me. I tried to wrap my head around all of these thoughts, but then I felt overjoyed to know that my parents were still alive. I leapt forward and hugged them, and I was so glad at that moment that I could go and live with my real mom and dad again. I was sad that my adoptive billionaire parents didn't even bother paying my ransom, but I was still glad to leave them behind.